Good afternoon to everyone. Hopefully you're all doing well on a Friday. I wanted to kind of go over what we're trying to accomplish here in this hour. The hour will go pretty quick. So as Dave said, we're going to go over panel specifications and the approval process. And what makes this so important is that after many, many years of doing enunciator panels and DE3000 panels, we have now gone up to this DE4000, which is still a configurable control system, but it also has programmable. It's programmable as well, which gives us some extra features, gives us more flexibility. But with flexibility comes a little more complexity. And so with the complexity comes into it, we've got to do some things a little different and add some more attention to the details up front. Because if we don't, it'll cost us in the end. So one of the things I want to start off before we get into the presentation and move through there, there's basically three phases that we need to look at when we do a DE4000 system. And even a DE3 system, for some panels, we'll need to look at doing this as well. One is we want to look at the drawings and have a approval process and make sure that what we're providing in the panel is exactly what you need. So that's one part of it. The other part of it is going to be the programming side. What we're going to be requesting of you, at least on all the 4000s, is either a cause and effect or sequence of operation. And what this does is it helps us define all the details up front. Now, we're not going to ask for that at the time of the order, but we're going to ask for that to be checked and signed off before we send the panel. So that's the second part of it. The third part of it, which we don't talk a lot about, but it is very important in the 4000, is the communication portion of it. We really need to know what are they talking? Are they talking Ethernet? Are they talking Modbus? Do they have a specific Modbus map that they need to follow? Because if they do, that's extra programming. If not, we'll give you the default mapping, and we can just go with what the DE4000 defaults to on the communication. So I bring those things up as these items have to be talked about. They have to be defined before the panel ships out. So what we're going to do is we're going to start out, look at the order process first, and then at the end we're going to go through the spec sheet and kind of go through some questions of why we need this information, and maybe even some questions of what does this mean, or what do I need to check, or things of that nature. One of the things I want to offer you is that if for some reason you have any questions when we're in the quote process, drawing process, or even cause and effect, feel free to always pick up the phone and ask questions. I'd rather you ask those questions up front than us at the end trying to figure out where we're at and why we're there, and trying to get there in a timely fashion. So it's very important to get all this information up front as much as possible. So what I'm going to do is a lot of you have seen this presentation, but we're going to start from here because this is the approval process. And like I said, you know, if you do have any questions anytime during this presentation, you can ask them anytime, especially if it's something that just triggers you at that point, or hold them until the end, and that'll be fine. So let's start with the presentation. Let me see if I can share that. Hold on one second. Let me jump out and share first. Can everyone see that?
Sure can, Greg.
Okay. All right. So let's get into this. As I said, a lot of this is going to be a review, but this is very important for what we're trying to accomplish as we do these DE4000 panels. As we talked about, the complexity is getting a little tougher and a little bit more as we move into the 4000. So we've got to be as accurate and be, you know, expedite those things to us as soon as we can get them. So it's very important. Communication is through the spec sheet, through the drawings, and through this cause and effect or sequence of operation. Not only do we need to get them approved, we also need to have them with all the information up front. Even if we get them to us on time and they don't have the right information, it doesn't do us any good. So they need to be accurate. We want you to approve these. So one of the things, the clock will not start on the delivery, and the quotes point this out, that the delivery, whether it be 6 weeks, 7 weeks, whatever, the delivery will start at the time of the approval of drawings, not the time at the approval of the receipt of the PO. It's the approval of drawings. So the quicker we can get you the drawing and you get it back to us, the sooner that clock will start. Because if it doesn't start, I can't order the parts and things of that nature. One of the things we will do, though, is if there's something on the BOM or something like that, it's long lead, we will go ahead and start getting some of those things in process, especially when you find things that are 6 to 8 weeks out. We might start to order those, especially if it's not a very oddball. But we'll talk to you and communicate that with you before we get the approval drawings, if we have to do that, to make sure that is approved before the whole drawing is. One of the big things that makes this so difficult is that the configurability and capabilities of the D4000 really is what brings the complexity into the picture. And so with that flexibility, it's increasing, right? And so as the flexibility is increasing, the more we can do with it, the complexity is increasing as well. So to integrate a complex package, we've got to know all the details. So please do your best. And like I said, even if you have questions while you're filling these things out or looking at drawings, the phone is there. You can pick it up, call me, call one of the engineers, even call John Nance. You can call one of us and just ask those questions. And hopefully we can answer them so you can put the right information. Because the thing about it is, you're the one that's close to the customer. We're not, and we need to get them to give us the information. You'll be the conduit to us. So as we'll see here, we've got these new specification documents that we need you to fill out. So that's the first step, is to fill that out at the time of the quote and fill that out completely. So first thing is that what you'll do is take the specification sheet. We'll see this in a minute. Fill it all out, send it to us. And the new spec sheet I've sent out, the Rev 1, only has the first 2 tabs. You can still use the other one, which has the 4 tabs, but all we require is those first 2 tabs, which has all the specifications of the enclosure, the power requirements, what type of ignition, what type of system, engine, and all that you have. So we need that completely filled out. Then we'll generate a quotation based on that specification worksheet. What we'll do is we'll try to get you a quote within a few days of that spec sheet coming in, get it out to you. One of the things I ask that you do is when you get that quote, please review that quote. We can make mistakes just as easy as you can. The one thing I like for you to do is read every detail of the quote. I know some of it's not going to make sense, but that's the only way you're going to learn, is to read through it. If you have questions, pick up the phone, ask. We try to spell out everything. But another thing to look at is the BOM. The BOM will tell you everything you really need to know, and seeing that you have the right number of terminal boards, the HMI in there, the controller. Things like that are probably key, just to spend the time going through the BOM. So therefore, we'll produce the drawings. The drawings will be sent to you in a PDF format. Then you need to use the Adobe Acrobat Reader. Everyone should have that. It's a pretty common software that most companies use. And so what we were going to ask you to do is basically electronically stamp it and sign it with your signature. And what we want to do is have that placed somewhere near the title block so that it'll be easy to find. But also what we'd like you to do is also to initial each of the page behind it if you can, near the title block. What that does is that allows me to know that you've looked at every page. It's kind of like a document in a contract. You'll sign the first page or the last page, and then you'll initial every page to make sure that you've read that page. And we want to do the same thing for that. If for some reason you have too many markups on the drawing, you don't have to approve it. You can there's a review stamp on there. Just review it, sign it, and send it back over to us. And what we'll do is we'll take your markups and basically reissue another revision of that drawing. And sometimes it just makes sense to do that. If there's a few marks here and there, it probably doesn't make sense to do that. But if there's quite a bit of stuff, like for instance, you look at your drawings and there's just red marks everywhere or marked up everywhere, it's probably worth to just send that back in and let us take a day or two to clean it up, and then you go back and make sure all those are picked up correctly, and then you sign off on it. Like I said, the other portion of it that I want you to be able to start doing is giving us these cause and effect. On the new specs, I've separated the cause and effect out of that, and a lot of you have never done one before. The thing about it is that if for some reason you have issues with it, get with us. We can do a lot of it. The big deal is we just need the information so we can produce that. Like I said, you're going to be the conduit from the end user to us and gathering that information. I don't really care if we do the cause and effect, the sequence of operation. A lot of times what we'll do on the sequence of operation, especially if it's a very high spec unit. In fact, where we use the cause and effect is basically when there's not much controls and it's mainly just shutdowns and monitoring. That's a good place to use a cause and effect. It could even be used on a DE3000. I have no problem using that. In fact, some people request that even on a DE3000, and it's a perfect place for a cause and effect. But once we start to get into some some complexity and some bigger controls in the 4000, I ask you to use the sequence of operation, because we can detail a lot of these items out. One of the things that, just for those, if someone here is from Canada, we will do a control philosophy, which is a sequence of operations, just a little different format. So feel free if you're in Canada, or even if you're in the US, if you want to see one of those. It's just the format's a little different. It's basically got the same amount of information. It's just a matter of format, and that has been kind of the standard up in Canada. So one of the things, the big reason why we want all this information is the more information we have up front, especially at quote, we can quote the time it's going to take us to for the programming, especially, as well as the panel drawings. That helps us to see if for some reason the drawings or the cause and effect is different than from the quote. That might hinder our delivery as well as the price. But what we'll do is we'll work with you. We're not going to rape you on pricing if it's just some minor things. Where it's going to really come into effect is when something that's going to take a lot of time and needs a lot of attention. We will come back and say, hey, this wasn't quoted. We'll need to do a revision on the quote to make this right. But one of the things I want to point out too is if you follow this with your customers, it's going to protect you as well. And one of the things I think that needs to happen is whenever you get on a project with a customer, talk about the process to them as well. Because I think if you talk to the details with them and let them know what's going to happen, then they'll understand. And most of them have done this, especially on bigger projects. They might have not have done it many times on small panel jobs, but just talk out the process with it. Communications is the key in all of this. And this protects you and us. And if you talk through those details with them, I think they'll understand and they'll get you the information as soon as possible. So let's go through the process of how to use the Adobe Acrobat Reader Approved Stamp. So when you open the drawing, you'll see something like this. And this is just a drawing here. You'll see the toolbar up there. So just open up the PDF. Then you see up there in the left-hand corner on the tab Tools. Basically, click on that, and then here comes all these 5 items that you can click on. The one you want to click on to stamp the drawing is Stamp. So when you do that, click on it, and it comes to with it on the toolbar. So find the stamp symbol and select the drop down. So you'll select the drop down menu, and you get these options. And what you want to do, since this is going to be with a signature, you want to use Dynamic. And what Dynamic does is allows us to timestamp it and put a signature or name there. So once you hit that Dynamic, you're going to hit the one that has Approved, and it will give you basically by who and the time and the date that you did that. And what this will do is this gives us electronic proof that it's been signed and approved, and as per marked up by the drawing. If for some reason, like I said, if it's just too much and you want it to be redone before you approve it, see the stamp above with Reviewed. So that would be the 2 stamps that you would use to send the drawings back to us. The first time you do this, it's going to give you this box, and after you fill it out once, you're not going to have to fill it again. So what this will do is basically provide your name, title, company, and you just put out all the information there and hit complete. And what I would do is, if you don't want to see this box every time, is check that box don't show again, and just save it. And every time you hit approved or reviewed, it will provide the name of the person who is approving it. So placement of the stamp is important. The reason is it makes it easier to find. Put it to the left if you can. If there's no room there, just put it over the top of the title block. Just use your best judgment. Just put it near there. That'll allow us to easily find that. All right. Any questions on that process? Once you get in there and do it once, it's easy after that. It's the first time. Just going through the process. That's always the trying to find the toolbar and which ones you need to go through and what process. But most of you should have this presentation. I'm sure if for some reason we need to send it out again, we will do that. So how to enter comments and markup. So you can still use Adobe. There's 2 ways you can do this. You can mark it up by hand and scan it in and save it as a PDF and then send it in to us, or you can use Adobe Acrobat Reader, and here's the kind of the way to do that. So you go back to Tools, click that, hit the comment there, and then you bring up this toolbar. So what you can do then is you've got these different things you can use with pencils and where you can type things in, and then basically provides a box over here, the comment. You'll have to play with this and do this. I know I'm so used to just doing it with a red pen or green pen and just scan it in and do it that way. But I know for a lot of people, this is just a lot easier to do it this way as well. But when you get involved with this, you're going to have to play with it for a little bit and get used to it. It's got the different commands for different things. You see the little balloon there for the comments, but you can mark up and strike through and do different things with the Adobe. And what you do is once you get that all done, marked up and done, then just save it and then send it to whoever's going to be the engineer probably that you're going to be working with on that panel. Okay. Any questions? I wanted to kind of go through this. I know we spent some time last year, at the end of the last year, going through this, but it was, I think, pretty important to go back through this and make sure you understood that we really do need these drawings. And you can do this. You'll do the same thing with the cause and effect or the sequence of operation. We'll have those in PDFs, and you can just do the same thing and sign it with the approval sign on that as well. And then we'll store those through the whole process of the project. And if we need to, we'll make comments and changes on there so that we'll have a running history of things that happen during the project. Okay. So where I want to spend the rest of the time is probably in something that let me see here. I'm going to pause the sharing and a second. I'm going to go to this Excel sheet here. So hold on a second. I'm going to share that. All right. Hopefully you can see the spec sheet. So,
yep, looks great.
So when we're doing specking of the panel, this is a very important part of the process, and we need to answer as many of these boxes. And I already know we have to add. There's some things we need to add and stuff like that. So I've got a running list, and so once we get a few more of these in, get some more input, I'm going to probably do a Rev 2 on this spec sheet. I've had people come and ask me to add some things in there, and they were correct in that we needed to add them. So if you see something, just make a comment through an email, forward it to me, and we'll send it. But what's great about this is if some reason the drop-down box doesn't have the information, you see this white box down there, you can actually type stuff down there. Just leave the box in red there and just type down below it and just get us the information you need to convey in that. Like for the hazardous area classification, everything should be there. If you click on this drop-down menu, you have all the different things. You have general purpose, Class 1 Div 2, Groups C and D, Class 1 Div 2, Groups A, B, C, and D, Class 1 Div 1, Zone 1 International, Zone 2 International. I know a lot of people, especially we have a lot of new people in this industry, some of you don't understand these classifications. I'd rather you not click that if you have a question and send this in. And the reason is because there is a big difference between Class 1 Div 1 and Class 1 Div 2. We're not going to go into all the details of that. Just to let you know, probably 85–90% of our panels are going to be Class 1 Div 2, Group C and D. But if you click that, Class 1 Div 1, you're probably going to see a big difference in price, probably a factor of 3, just because of that click right there. So when we talk about being accurate, it is very important because that one click, everything else could be right in this whole page. But if you miss one of these clicks, just going to Class 1 Div 1, even to go into this group A, B, C, and D, and you can't click that, what that tells me is that I've got to put some extra money in there to basically take care of A and B, which probably is the cost of a purge system. So when we talk about making sure it's accurate, it could be just one little click that's clicked wrong that will make a big difference in the price of your quote. So we can go in here and say it's Class 1 Div 2. Enclosure type, these are just to let you know, most of our standards now are no window, front access, swing insert, no window. That's our standard enclosure right now. But there might be reasons like front and rear access, fixed insert. If you have an enunciator panel, that's what you're going to have to click. If you do need a window, click it. We can get those. It's just going to cost you more money. Or you don't want to insert. You want a door only, which is very, very common with the DE4000. Maybe you just want a swing insert kit, like an HMI kit over the door just to protect the HMI, or without one. So you would click that. So that's what the enclosure type. Then you have the panel stand. We have the different heights. Maybe you don't need that. It needs to be wall mounted, but you have the 24-inch, 30, or custom. If you have a custom, you would hit custom. Then below there, Type in how high you need it. Okay. Pressure tubing and fittings. So we have the different things from welded to seamless, even whether you need your two fittings to be stainless steel, Swedge-like. Our standard's basically 3/16 stainless and then seamless tubing. Those are our standards. So if you come in here, and then also if you want the transducer calibration, do you want a block and bleed or do you want a three-way valve? And things of that nature. So you have another drop-down box here. You want a 1/4 inch tubing and 3/8 tubing. That's a huge deal. That's a difference of price in going from a 1/4 inch bulkhead to 3/8 bulkhead. A lot of our packagers use 3/8 to keep off freeze-offs. Further north you go, that's an important thing. So just click all those boxes. If for some reason you don't know what that is, I'd rather you leave it blank than put the wrong thing on there. So just know that we need as accurate as much of information as possible. If for some reason you need to go through these choices with me, definitely do that. Engine and ignition type. We got the different types of engines, whether it be an ESM or the different CATs with the different, whether it be a DIS, EIS, different things of that nature. If it's not in there, type it in here. It could be an ESM too. That's one of the things I need to put in there. That's a common thing. There's about 2 or 3 different ones I need to put in there so that we know what the ignition type are. Fuel valve type. Different types of fuel valves. You got the CAT, ASCO solenoid, and the different Murphy ones. And just the different, there might be one that we don't have in there. Type it in there. Power. Is it 24 volt or is it voltage like AC, 115 to 220? CD ignition and different things of whether it's going to be on the grid. You know, if you have a generator panel of some sort, maybe you're going to be on the grid, or you're just using, you know, alternator or solar panel with batteries, whatever you might have. Just click that. In-device discrete signal type. Normally open, normally closed. Is it a single wire system that goes to ground, or is it a 2-wire system? Just click that. Speed input signal. Are we looking at Mac pickup, CD ignition, G lead? Or do we need a standalone hour meter with that going into, especially if we're having, you know, old annunciator panel type. So just click that. And then if you want to, if you know at that point what your overspeed and underspeed set point, the more information you bring that's correct, go ahead and put it in there. You might not even know that, which is fine. We'll try to get that at the sequence of operation if we can. And we got engine starting controls, compressor prelude. I don't want to go through all of these because it will take all day, but hopefully you get the idea of going through these and clicking and picking the right ones as to for each of these boxes. But go through each of these boxes. Find these things that you need to click in there. And like I said, if one of them's not there, just click in the box underneath, write it in, type it in there, and leave this box red. And that lets us know that, hey, this is the selection you've made for that. Before we go into this, I'm going to go back to the top because there's a lot of important information up here, especially right here, the driver model, compressor model, and the application. Right here, you would put the type of engine or if it's electric motor. All that information is very important. You would be surprised how much we know by you picking what engine it is. You know, whether it's a 7042 GSI or if it's a CAT 3600 Atom 3, 3606, 3608, 3616, whatever it is. you put that in your driver model. Then the compressor model, put what the compressor is. Is it an aerial 4-throw? You can even put the model number of that. That gives us information about the system, how many throws, how many how much IL will be thrown off of that model of that. And then the application. Don't assume that we understand what the application. It could be gas lift. It could be generation. It could be anything. So a pump application, as maybe you don't have a compressor and this is left blank, then this makes even more sense to put something in there, whether it be a pump or whatever. So then we come down to the technology selection, and this is where you tell us which device controller you want. Do you want a 4,000, 3,000? In fact, one of the things, it could be an Exacta 21, just to let you know that there are a few customers, mainly international, that will still allow to do 21s, mainly to replicate those that are existing in the field. So for most of you, you will never select the Exacta. Maybe you want a PLC. If it makes sense, we need to do that if for some reason, but the two that you're probably going to click most of the time is going to be the 4,000 or the 3,000. Different things that you might want on the enclosure: fold down table, a gland plate. Do you want to reverse mount the stand with the cover plate? Do you want a window kit, like an HMI window kit over your D4000 HMI? Pneumatic supply pressures. These are all different things that have to do with the supply, whether you want regulated pressure at the source. You want a coalescent filter to remove any dropped liquids out of the system. Do you want it with automatic liquid dump, or do you want it manual? The right here, it's basically with automatic, but there is some instances that you don't want the automatic, you want the manual instead. Remote data. Now we're going to get into the communications. This gives us a little bit of indication, especially at quote. We're going to need more once we get into the sequence of the stuff. Say, for instance, most people are going to want first out and maybe status of the run status, whether it's stopped or run, and then data that normally we'd see there. But the biggest thing we really need to know is whether it's going to be Modbus, Ethernet, and if we're going to have some type of converter. Say, for instance, they want to, they're converting from a 232 port or from a 485. We need to know that, as well as the protocol. Most of the time, it's going to be Modbus RTU. That's the most common Modbus that's used as RTU. We need to know if it's going to be master or slave. Most of the time, we know what it is, but there's always that oddball out there. If for some reason it's not listed there, hit other, please specify, and you got room down below to specify the communication requirements. So please do so. Then over here, I know a lot of people don't understand what's going on here, but what this is basically for your analog outputs. There's two or three different ones that we see a lot. One is the engine speed control, recycle valve control, suction and throttling valve control. And sometimes we're doing it via pneumatic, or we're doing it via electrical signal. And so that's important to click off that, because if for some reason it's pneumatic and you click this, then we're not going to quote the I2P that goes with that will allow the right signal to go to the governor that is looking for a pneumatic signal. So those are very important things. Now, this right here, you're going to be basing a lot of this stuff off of suction pressure, discharge pressure, maybe even engine manifold pressure. So what this does is allow us to know what these controls, what we're controlling, are based off of. Is it off suction pressure, discharge pressure, engine, or other process in place to right here put that other process there. Another thing that we want to know up front is, do you have valve control? Which valves are you have in your system? Do you want them automated? If you do, click these boxes. If you want it manual with a valve on the panel. Click these. So this first page, if you fill it out correctly, will give us nearly everything we need to get you what you need on your quote. By just every click gives us the little details we need to make sure we give you everything you need in that panel. The other half of it is the IO list. And so what you want to do is come in here and type in your description of each of the IO. You have section, discharge stage 1, discharge stage 2, the IO type, whether it's an analog input, digital input, DO, AO, and then the different types. And you do have, this is where you do that here, is the AI, DO, AI, and you can select that, the range, the units of measure. Some of this stuff you might not have at the beginning, but we at a minimum need to know what all the IO is and the type of IO, so that we can definitely make sure we get the right type. The best thing to do on these two, it helps us, is to group them up in analog inputs, digital inputs, digital out, analog out, so that, because that's how they're going to be done on the board. If you have an order of which way you want all of these on the board, you can actually define them right here so that we can define it on the quote as well as define it in a drawing in a specific order. Like I said, this is going to be a living document that will be kept in our project folder. So we could even go back and recalibrate this to have the correct IO if some changes are made, and also the placement of it if it makes sense to do that. But we can come in here and do all the shutdowns classes, what the limits are, what the low and high, and whether it be alarm shutdown or shutdowns. So as you can see here, we have, when you get through with this, with these two selections right here, we have basically everything we need for our quote. But the thing that's got to be stressed in this, it's got to be accurate. You're going to make mistakes. I know that happens too. Sometimes you think you click the right thing, but that's why before you send it in, I would go back over each one of these columns and make sure that what you've clicked in there makes sense to you, and then make sure that's what you want on your panel. Any questions? The only other thing I want to add is the communications is very important. The thing we need to know up front is whether it's going to be Ethernet, Modbus, or if they already have a certain pattern that they want to go by. Say, for instance, you're doing a refurb with a unit that's out in the field that's talking to a PLC or SCADA system out there. A question to ask them is, hey, is there a certain pattern you want that Modbus to read? In fact, one of the things you might do is even kind of point out, here's our standard Modbus map. Is this going to work for you? Because if it's not, that standard Modbus is not going to work, we're going to have to go in there and script in these new Modbus addresses to meet what their SCADA or their PLC is reading. And it's neat that we can do that, but it does take time and money to do that. So we want to know that up front. A lot of times what happens is that up front, we don't even think about the communications, but it's probably one of the most important questions to ask. Because if you don't have that information up front, we don't have a clue of what they want. And then when you get the panel out there and we've not talked or even asked the question about communication, then they'll say, oh, we need this, that, and all that. And then it's going to take us 2 or 3 days to get that to them. And if you're already ready to push the button and they need that stuff to be read and pulled into their system, they will get pretty upset. And it's understandable. It's just something that no one thinks about until the very end. So this whole communication thing should be a key to you to ask those questions. And if for some reason you don't know how to ask or know what the terms are, they'll be asking you some questions, whether your Modbus is half duplex, full duplex, 2-wire, 4-wire. Feel free to pick up the phone and call and ask. Just say, I don't know. Let me get back with you. The key is first asking the question, but second, getting the correct information. If we get the correct information up front for all the things we need, the project's going to go very smooth. And kind of gone through this. Any comments or questions up to this point? I'm about done, unless you have something you want to go back over, a question even for one of these subjects that's on the spec sheet.
Stuff, Greg. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Grubbs?
Greg, where can you find this specification sheet? Is it going to be on our website now or anything? Or
yeah, it's on the website. Yeah, if you go to our website, it's under, I think, control panels, and it's sitting right there, the latest and greatest spec sheet.
Thank you, Curtis. Anybody else? Well, I think like we, Greg, we appreciate this. Like we were saying when we first rolled this out in the fall last year. Certainly last year, I think, has made it very clear that we are working in a much more remote environment, you with your customers and us with you. And the opportunity sometimes for that face-to-face discussion, while we hope is getting better, certainly as we march through the year, may never be the same, right? And so I think the idea of trying to leverage tools like this that are simple to use and are more or less standardized, we believe has a lot of merit. And I think Greg's comments here on not only the process side, but I think in general, the wisdom in doing an upfront, as much due diligence as we can do and you can do with your customers really has a lot of value. And I think, it certainly reduces the chaos at the time that the panel is going on. I think so the more you know and the more we know from you, that allows us to have a good sharp pencil when it comes to providing the quote and managing the chaos on the upfront side. But really that is going to become quite critical when you're standing in front of the panel with your customer going through the commissioning and startup, right? So again, the more we know at the beginning, the better. Certainly in terms of your time allocations, we know that you're scheduling crews and your customers are scheduling time down for the unit to be able to put these units, the new panels on. Being able to dial that window in as tightly as you can without having to allow for time to, again, to pick up the pieces here when picking up something that maybe didn't get discovered or talked about properly through at the beginning side. Doing as much of that as upfront as you can certainly limits that risk to you, and that's overtime, that's more times in hotels, that's unhappy customer. I mean, we've all been down these roads. Ultimately, what this means is reduced cost or controlled cost, not only in terms of getting the panel spec'd up front, but again, and not having to stand out there and have product hot shotted in and have people staying over extended period of time, more cost to get the job done, customer downtime, all those things. A little bit of due diligence on the front side, a little bit of extra effort really does make the difference. But like Greg was also talking about, one of the new dimensions that we're dealing with more and more, not only on the DE4000, but in other products as well as any of the PLC-based solutions, is the fact that we're not just talking about getting the physical design of the panel right. We're no longer talking about getting just the configuration of the panel right to deliver the right safety shutdown and monitoring functionality and control functionality. But now more and more, we know these units are living in the compressors are living in a communications and remote management environment. Getting the communications right, at least as much as we can on the front side, again, is going to limit the amount of chaos standing on site and the amount of time required to get all that done. We have seen some pretty horrific stories, early on, not only with our products, but we know of other customers purchasing other products with, even from in other parts of their business here, you may know some of those same stories, right? Where not looking after this new communications integration function can be really, really difficult to overcome in the field. Certainly to do so without a whole lot of extra time and energy and frustration. So again, the more, like Greg was saying, the more that we can do to work through these steps, use the tools that we've tried to develop, make that as easy as we can in the remote centric environment, certainly that we're living in right now. I think that brings a lot of value. So anyway, so questions from for myself or for Greg or anyone else on the call?
Greg, can you confirm where this spreadsheet is on the website? I was looking under controls just now and wasn't able to find it.
Let me see. Let me make sure I've got the. Let me get the website open. I found it the other day.
I was looking for it when I did that spec yesterday, and I couldn't find a new one, so I used an old one I had. So.
Go down. It says Electronic Control Panels Products. It says Specification and Warranty. It's down there, Panel Specification Form. So it's the last subject under Electronic Control Panel Products. In fact, let me see if I can share my screen there.
I found it. Thank you so much. But go ahead and share if you want.
Yeah, let me. It doesn't hurt to show everyone so that everyone does it, because things will change. We'll have different revisions. Just check every once in a while. Let me share here. We'll go to. It'll let me. It might not let me because I'm on not Teams, but Blue Jeans on that. So, but if you just go to the website under Downloads and just go down to Electronic Control Panel Products, and then the very last one, Specification and Warranty, and then it'll be the first. It'll be the first one's going to be the 3000. The second one's going to be the high spec configuration, which is the one you're going to download. So it's going to be the second one under the panel high spec configuration.
Got it. Thank you.
Sharing the screen now. Greg, can you see that?
Hold on a second. Yeah, there you go.
The document Greg's talking about here, this one. It'll just download the latest version to your downloads on your PC.
Like I said, I'm probably in the next 2 or 3 weeks do another rev, and I might just send an email, personal email, saying, hey, there's a new revision on there, just to give you a heads up. There's some things I need to add and correct on here, and as you use it, you'll find more things as we go. And if you find something that doesn't make sense, just let me know, and I'll correct it if it needs to be corrected or explain it, one of the two.
Yeah, we can certainly send that out with Chuck. Right, so if there's anything new that needs to be done,
yep,
we would just send that out with a note to everybody from Chuck Cooper.